All right. It's Monday night. What a day. Long day for me. Up at put my drink somewhere. Okay. My lovely wife helping me out. Up at like 6:30 this morning, which is a little late for me, but up and after it. And basically from the time I've been awake until now, I'm still working. So hopefully you guys are hustling on a Monday, chasing whatever your dreams are. We'll do it all again tomorrow. Figured I'd be a little festive for you guys tonight. This is a shirt by my wife. Let me know what you think in the chat. Is it cool? Is it lame? I want to know. She thinks it's cool. It's definitely vintage. I'll say that. So let me know in the chat what you guys think about the shirt. Lots of things happening in digital assets today. Things happening with macroeconomics. Where are we at on the yen? Continuing to appreciate against the dollar, which is not good for the reverse carry trade. Still sitting at around 143. Actually, a little bit on the reversal there. So, yeah, still watching for that. I don't know when that's going to happen. You've got, narratives around tariffs and all of that stuff. But in reality, this is what the pressure is on the market. This is people thinking that, that's going to happen. It's going to be a global credit call when that happens and it unwinds. We have the EVM sidechain for the XRPL going live here at the end of the month, here in April, which I think is a big tell. You've got confirmation for Paul, hopefully coming soon, from Trump, moving him in as the head of the SEC. We got confirmation from the Senate and Congress the other day, just waiting for that official announcement. Still waiting for that official announcement on the end of the Ripple case. It's like, cool, we're done, but when are you guys going to put it on your website? So everybody's aware. Everything's still kind of trending sideways in the market, a little bit up after the weekend. Some volatility, to the downside. A lot of people worried about stuff, but I think the bottom's in. Just a lot of things indicating that we are going to move higher in risk on assets. Where did gold end up today? Gold was at an all-time high on Friday. We got XAU on TradingView. Where is it at today? Gold putting in a new all-time high, even further up now. We're at $3,223. Kind of going parabolic here. Looking for a pullback in gold at some point in the near future. I know people don't want to hear that. I know they bought gold to hedge against the collapse of the dollar. But also looking at the DXY over here on TradingView. I should be a sponsor for them, but I'm not. I like TradingView just because the chart's easy to read. Dollar, the lowest it's been since mid 2022. Back down below 100 on the dollar index or the Dixie, the DXY. Dollar going down means risk on asset go up traditionally. So with an all-time high in gold here, and you've got the dollar continuing to lose value, I think it's time for a reversal. I think that you're going to see a big move with breadth open in small cap stocks, and alongside that, you're going to see risk on assets move to the upside. And then probably the music ends and musical chairs stop with the reverse carry trade. But I think we're in for some upward momentum in markets in the short term. Back and forth on tariffs with Trump. And again, I don't believe in that narrative. I'm highly confident it's the reverse carry trade that people are concerned about, and that's why you're seeing a move to risk off. But all we need to see is, breadth open back up and liquidity move in. The way that they could do that is through stable coins. So we've talked about this in the past, but I'm going to kind of come back to it here because it's something we touched on the Mastermind today. Right now, the Fed really, and most central banks only have two levers they can pull. They can print more money, or they can lower interest rates. And both of those things will stimulate the economy. People will borrow money if it's cheaper to borrow money. And if there's more money being printed and doled out, then there's more money moving across the economy. The third lever that they haven't really ever had, I mean, they kind of pull this lever through interest rates, but if they could actually affect the velocity of money across an economy, and the way that you could jumpstart that would be through, you guessed it, instant settlement via stablecoins or FedNow or any of these other systems, Swift, if they were to adopt digital assets and distributed ledger technology. So I think that may be part of this. Maybe that's what we see for things beginning to rise, and that just continues to be exacerbated by the unwind of the reverse carry trade. Maybe it's just up and to the right from here for digital assets and utility-driven assets. All on the table, right? I don't have a crystal ball, just some guy on the internet talking about global macroeconomics and what I'm seeing in the charts and where things are, just historically based on previous events and the way that markets tend to play out based on where things are. So everything's up in the air. We always do these on a Monday and Wednesday night. We'll go ahead and hop into the chat here and run down. Thank you, babe. Run down the AMA for you guys over here on X and Twitter. And we're also over here, actually X and Twitter, same thing now. Geez, X and YouTube. And then we're over here on TikTok as well. This person's asked, are you still believe that XRP will hit 1,000 this year? As long as these catalysts unwind and things go, yes. My predictions are event driven. If you just see ETFs and a few other things happen, it's going to be double digits, maybe. But the rest of that, what's your actual TikTok name? So many fakes. It's just, I think it's just Jake Claver. It might be Beyond Broke on here, Beyond_Broke. I'd have to go look. That's the moniker that we've used for a long time. And maybe I'll kind of talk about that because I don't think I've ever talked about that publicly. It's been a long time. So the reason that the community that we have, the Mastermind, is called Beyond Broke Mastermind is I didn't come from money. My parents were well-to-do. I did grow up like white privilege, just completely transparent. I had a really good childhood. My parents did get divorced when I was 18 years old, and so there's some stuff there. But outside of that circumstance, like, really had it pretty good. I was fat growing up and got made fun of, and that's really like the worst thing that happened to me. So, like, nothing in comparison to most people. But as I got older and started, taking care of myself, been in situations where I've had to ask people for change at the gas station. I've been in other spots where I've slept on friends' couches. Just you go through your 20s and certain things happen and you don't know how to create value or help other people. And because of that, you don't have a whole lot of money. So for me, Beyond Broke is getting from a place where you're broke to the other side of that, and then continue to build wealth and abundance so that you can give back to those people that may not be as blessed as you. Right. And so we've built a culture in the Mastermind around that thought. We provide financial education and business resources there in the group so that people can get from that place where they are, where they might be working for somebody else or stuck in a position that they don't necessarily enjoy, to a place where they do control their life and they control their money and they have the ability to do the things and provide the things that they want to for those around them. This person says, need help with crypto. You've come to the right place, sir. And we do that through digital assets, right? I'm not this moon boy hype like thing that goes on for the majority of the space. I actually have a video that's coming out this week. We'll release it. That goes over all of the total global market caps for different asset classes, the total daily volume for the trading on each one of those, which assets have traction in each one of those areas, and then some price predictions based on the real math of the adoption of those assets and those protocols or networks in those applications in a reasonable rate, around like 80% adoption. If you look at the Pareto principle, that's tends to be how things go. You got Google with 80% of search engine volume, and you've got other people that fight over the other 20. There's going to be behemoths and people that take over large shares of these markets and are the main dominating networks that are used in certain capacities. But there are going to be, other players that fight over small pieces. This person says they have 25K to invest. I can just tell you what I did, right? So this is not financial advice. Just somebody that did well in crypto in 20 and 21. And then I started looking for the right people to help me with my money. And that's kind of what led me to the position I'm in today. So at the time, I went deep on 10 or 15 different cryptos, like 13 different cryptos, somewhere between 5 and 15 grand invested, and happened to be getting in at the right time, and the bull run took off, and made a bunch of money. And it was invested in things that I thought, yeah, there's some utility there. I like the team. They've got partnerships. There's some traction. That makes sense to me. And that's how I continue to invest in the space. And that's why I am siloed. Well, I say that. I'm no longer siloed in XRP. So I did find a low cap token that I think could have some pretty significant appreciation, similar to XRP, if they get the adoption in the space that I talk about. And it's in the video that's going to be released later this week. We did mention it in the Mastermind this morning. It's for insurance, which is a huge, huge market. And this particular token hasn't been around that long. We'll see if it could be a Fugazi, right? It has some traction. There's $225 million worth of insurance contracts tokenized on the chain. If you want to know what it is, you can join the Mastermind, and everybody else in there already knows. But you'll get to find out in the video when we put it out here in the near future. It's not XDC. It's not anything I've ever talked about on any public channel. I found it in the research that I was doing for this video, which was wild. And it was kind of just like a last minute, like, should check on insurance. And sure enough, something there. So anyway, with that, if you do want to join the Mastermind, you can. It's up here at the top. It's beyondbroke.com. You can get a free month there, see if it's for you. You can't see it on over here on TikTok. Beyondbroke.com. There you go. The code for the Mastermind for the free month is beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO gets you a free month there in the group. So we'll go ahead and hop into the questions here and run it down with you guys. Again, appreciate y'all hanging out on a Monday night. Glitch in the Matrix says, one of your last lives, you did not have a chance to answer my super chat question. I'm sorry. I'm here and I will answer it now. They say Hidden Road utilizes ROUSD on the XRPL to enhance liquidity. Will the EVM sidechain be utilized by Hidden Road? It would have to be. It'll have to be because you're not going to use Ethereum, which is where all of the ROUSD is based today. And you need the smart contract capability to be able to issue those stable coins. And that's why I said at the beginning of this that it's so important that EVM sidechain goes live for the actual usage and settlement of XRP to, for stable coins and other applications. And that's going to happen here at the end of April based on what Ripple's whispering. So we'll see if that's the case or not, but that's my expectation. I don't know if end of April is April 30th or if the end of April is like April 20th. Your guess is as good as mine. So I don't have a specific date, but here at the end of the month, we should see the EVM sidechain go live. And Hidden Road is still going to take a little bit longer too. So I didn't understand this until participating in this space. So when you make an acquisition of a regulated company, it's not like, cool, day one, you go. Like there's a transition of control. The regulated bodies that are over that institution or that company have to be notified. People have to be changed. Officers have to be enlisted. Like there's a lot of rigmarole that goes into purchasing a regulated corporation like Hidden Road. This is the first time that it's not a bank that's bought a clearinghouse. But with this acquisition, Ripple can really force everybody else to adopt XRP. Like I don't think people understand that. So now they have a clearinghouse. They can do financing. They can do settlement. They can do margin release. There's a lot of things that they can do with Hidden Road that they didn't have the ability to do before. And if they can provide settlement for financial transactions, Swift better watch out. I know it's not a global, infrastructure. They have RippleNet. They have a lot of partners. and they can facilitate that. But it only takes two counterparties starting to use XRP and beating the market significantly in their cost, and everybody else will adopt it very quickly. So this really kind of corners the market with this acquisition. This is really strategic by Ripple. And they've been that way the whole time. When they acquired Medico and made that Ripple custody, or Metaco, whatever you want to call it, it was already integrated. You know, that was $250 million they spent on that acquisition. And this was a big acquisition. This is $1.25 billion that they used to acquire Hidden Road. $500 million of that was cash. Another portion of that was as equity. I think 1.5% of Ripple equity was used in that acquisition, and the rest was an earnout, which is a really good way to position yourself and make sure that the people that have had traction and have their relationships continue to stick around and are motivated to make some money and continue to grow the business. So I think it's a really good way that they put it together. We're talking to them about how we can work with them for some of the financial products that we've created at Digital Wealth Partners for our clients there to be able to generate returns on their XRP, which is super cool. Keep you guys up to date. You know, the Mastermind is going to know sooner and more than anybody else, but we'll make sure that you guys here publicly are aware of things as they happen also. So the rest of his super chat here, he says, to access the multi-chain via the Axelar bridge to move real world tokenized assets, enhancing liquidity for Hidden Road, trying to put the puzzle together. Yeah, it's going to have to be on the EVM sidechain where RLUSD is used as liquidity and for settlement, and XRP same way. Yeah, I think you got it, dude. XLR is only needed for a couple applications. So Goldman, they have their own derivative of copper that they used, and Corda and Hyperledger that they built out private instance for themselves. There's some different pieces from each one that they used for that. You got HSBC that primarily uses Corda, UBS. And I talk a lot about this in the video that I'm about to put out that I shot the other day. It's the longest video I've ever shot. It's like an hour long, going over all of the different asset classes and who has traction and what's been built and which networks are likely to garner the market share and be used in these applications. It's pretty comprehensive. I spent like 2 weeks doing due diligence and going back and forth through things before we put it out. So would love if you guys would check that out when it does drop and let me know what you think. But yeah, you're spot on here, glitching in the matrix with what's going to need to happen for them to actually utilize it. We got Marcine. They say, hey, Jake, how are you? You mentioned not being able to buy XRP on exchanges on centralized exchanges in the future. I understand that, but why shouldn't we be able to buy XRP directly from AMM pools on the XRP ledger? So liquidity pools will only have LP tokens. Once you put your XRP in there, they're not like where you can retrieve it in kind. It's liquidity provision. Now, there may be some way to then go swap your LP tokens back to XRP, but the tokens that you would get out of the pool or purchase from the pool would be liquidity pool tokens, which would be representative of the two assets that sat in that pool. I think you'd have to completely unwind the pool for those assets to actually go back to whoever contributed them. And again, if you contribute to the pool, I don't think you're going to be able to pull your XRP back out. And that's why I think pseudo accounts are so important. So XLS 64, if you guys want to go check that out, it's an amendment that's been proposed for the XRPL. I talked to David Schwartz about that last year at Consensus, and he said, June, late May, early June this year is when he thought those amendments would end up being proposed. I don't know how long it's going to take for them to actually get passed, but that's when it will likely be. And you'll get liquidity pools and borrow lend when that happens also, but you need credentials before that goes live. So you need the ability to verify accreditation. They already have, digital identity on the XRPL, which is indicative of KYC, AML, OFAC, BIS, things that a regulated transaction or entity would need to be able to participate. And then if you have credentials, then you can, have whatever certifications or accreditation alongside your digital identity. And that would allow you to participate in certain investments on the XRPL, including liquidity pools. When we talk to Ripple, they're basically built out like a Reg D fund, you would contribute your XRP in kind to the liquidity pool, and then whoever managed the liquidity pool would be like a GP. They would then allocate that XRP to whatever DeFi application or liquidity pool provision or AMM or whatever else they saw fit to be able to generate a return for those participating. So pretty cool to see that. We actually did the first ever in-kind investment of XRP in a regulated hedge fund. We called that capital about 2 weeks ago, which is super cool. So our clients are the first people ever contributing their XRP in kind into a security offering and able to generate a return on their XRP. So this will be the first month that we, have returns on that XRP, and we will pay the first quarterly distribution to our clients in July this year. They're Digital Wealth Partners. So if you're interested in earning somewhere between 10 and 20% on your XRP, and that number is just predicated on previous returns. Previous returns are not always indicative of future performance. So, give me some grace on that. But that is based on the previous, market action and the performance of these partners that we have. That's likely what our clients will be making on their XRP, and you can do in kind or in cash. We have two different options for people, and we'll continue to build those out. So super innovative, super cool, super proud of my team over there. Yeah, I don't think that you're going to be able to purchase XRP off the open market. It's going to be over the counter between people that are willing to sell, either Ripple, large institutions, or retail investors that are willing to let it go for a premium in the future. We got Don't Diss the Squawk with the super chat. Appreciate you on that. They say, hey, Jake, thanks so much for the great content you provide. I live in the UK. It is late, brother. It is late there in the UK. Thank you for hanging out. If I live in the UK, would I qualify for joining Quant for XRP? Joining your Quant for XRP. Should create a limited company and a trust in the UK and then just join you guys. Depends on if you're going to stay there or not. I know a lot of people in the UK are looking to move post price appreciation. Dubai is a very popular jurisdiction on the other side of price appreciation. We know some people that are there from the UK in Dubai, good people. And got other people in Nevis and Portugal and Monaco, Switzerland. And you may still maintain your life there in the UK, just structure your assets abroad somewhere. Nevis tends to be, a good place for an LLC. And then, if you wanted to set something up in Portugal, that's probably another good spot too. And then you can do Jordan. There's an island between the mainland and the UK there that's Jordan, that where a lot of people set things up also. So just depends on what your long-term goals are. So, and I'm not an estate planner or a tax attorney. I can't give you financial advice, but we partner with all those people. So if you want to have a call with us or email us at info@digitalfamilyoffice.io, happy to make recommendations for a consult to have a conversation with somebody that really can help you decide what that's going to look like for you and your family. And yes, to your first question, if you do have your assets in an LLC or some type of trust or corporation, you can absolutely work with us at Digital Wealth Partners and generate a return on your XRP as long as you're accredited. You have to meet the accredited requirements here in the US. That might not be the case in the near future, but we don't currently have anything. And if you are interested in that, either way, please reach out to info@digitalwealthpartners.net. Maddie B says, is the $1,500 paid to DAG to form an LLC a deduct cost? Yeah, you get to write that off. That is a write-off, sir. That is for your business. And as any revenue that's generated in your corporation, you would be able to write that off against the revenue that you generated. It would have to be income that you would write that off against. It wouldn't be capital gains, but again, you'd want to work with your CPA to rectify that and make sure it's buttoned up and done the right way. If you need a CPA, again, you can reach out to us. We have lots of good ones here in the US, and we were working on, I actually met with a group in Australia just the other day, Consensus Layer. If you guys are there in Australia and you need somebody to help you form your estate or do your accounting or do your taxes, they can help you out. Two good guys over there. They deal with digital assets all the time, and they can help you, structure something so that you can participate with us to be able to generate returns on your XRP. All right, so people like the shirt. All right. We got Hunter. He says, just because I like the shirt. Appreciate it, man. This is the wife's recommendation. I'm not my favorite thing in the world, but it's she thinks it's cool. So I figured I'd wear it and jazz it up a little bit for you guys tonight. Super vintage. Appreciate that. Yeah. She's watching. She'll like the compliments. Wayne, what's up, Wayne? He says April 16th lawsuit settlement ends. April 20th and 21st are supposed to be important XRP dates. Also, if they are and why. Do you know if they are and why? It's Easter. There's a lot of symbolism with XRP. You've also got Passover going on right now. So shout out to everybody that's participating in that and doing all the things involved with that. If you are Jewish, a couple of our employees are. So doing that right now. Yeah, interesting. I don't know that we're going to get the lawsuit ending. What is that? Today is Monday, Wednesday this week, maybe. Absolutely could happen. We've got, a lot of things here that are pretty close that I think could roll things. Reverse carry trade. You've got, again, markets are poised and looked like they're about to melt up to me based on things that I'm seeing in the charts. I think gold is about to rotate hard into risk on assets, and with the dollar falling, that tends to be a signal for risk on assets to move as well. Unless there's problems in the treasury market, which could also be the case with reverse carry trade. So we have, I'm going to take a couple over here on YouTube or on TikTok, billions or maybe billionaires or trillionaires overnight. I think that there will definitely be a few people that reach that trillionaire status in the current dollar. I don't know what it looks like in the new dollar, if there is a new one. I think there's going to be, Brad Garlinghouse and a few others have a lot of XRP. We know some people, we have some clients that have, 30 to 50 million XRP. Cool people. So hopefully they do pretty well. I think that they will. We have Happy Days. What's up, man? I like the name. They say, hey, Jake, you're a trailblazer. Thank you. And sometimes that's a beating, but yeah, we're fighting through it. Will you need an LLC for your offering of yield? Yes, we require at Digital Wealth Partners that you hold your assets inside of some type of wrapper. So that could be an LLC. It could be any type of corporation, a limited company. It could be a trust. There just needs to be something around an IRA. Even the IRA kind of inhibits your ability to do some things because it's qualified capital. But the others give you full right and capability. Can an American LLC go under an Australian party limited company? Oh, you could just use the limited company there in Australia, brother. You don't need to set up an LLC here in the US. If your assets are held in that or a family trust there in Australia, good to go. What else can I do to get ready for yield from Australia? Many thanks. You might reach out to Consensus Layer. I had a conversation with them the other day. If you do have things structured there in a limited company, they might be able to help you get it into a family trust. And again, there's going to be some tax, considerations for you to do that, but it might be worth it while the asset's very low in comparison to where it's going to go over the long term. So different for everybody, but just a thought. We'd love to work with you if you have your assets in a company. If you want to work with Digital Wealth Partners and you want to earn a yield, we have a special going, and this is only through Friday this week. So we normally require that somebody has at least $500,000 in current value of their digital assets to work with us as a minimum. In the past, we have had it at 100,000 XRP as a minimum, but just for this week, we are going to drop it down to 50,000 XRP. So if you have 50,000 XRP and you want to get into institutional custody, If you want to generate returns, if you're accredited, and in the near future, if you're not accredited, I can talk about that because we don't have the funds live yet and we don't have an offering. So we're working on it if you're not accredited for the very near future. But if you are accredited, we can already generate returns. The next capital call for the income fund and the growth fund will be the 1st of May. And then we will launch more funds in June for people to participate in that might not meet that accredited status. So if that's something that interests you, and again, you only have 50,000 XRP, and I say only, that's a good amount of XRP for a lot of people. We would love to work with you. Again, you just go to digitalwealthpartners.net and fill out the contact us form there. And you're going to want an LLC and your assets in a corporation or a trust before we're able to onboard you. But as long as you're in the process of that this week, we will honor the 50,000 if you do reach out. We got JA. He says, already been onboarded. What? And was wondering if I should add my 3 young adults to my LLC before major appreciation. So if you've been onboarded, you have your assets in a corporation, they're in the LLC. You could. You might wait until post price appreciation and then gift them small pieces of equity. And then depending on how much you want to keep in your estate and how much you want to gift into your asset protection trust, because you're able to squeeze that value. So it's been a while since I've talked about that on here, and I know we have a lot of new viewers. So I'll go ahead and run that down. Why do we recommend putting your assets into an LLC before price appreciation? Well, there's a lot of reasons. You're able to mitigate taxes, the anonymity component. You get the benefits of the regulations there in Wyoming to be able to participate and use digital assets to generate an income or borrow against them or do business activities with the benefits that the regulations there in Wyoming provide. But separate of that, you can set up insurance on yourself. You would be a key employee of that policy, of that corporation, because you were the one directing the investments for it. And therefore, there's insurable interest. And so that makes it really easy to set up a PPLI policy on the other side of price appreciation to be able to mitigate taxes and allow your assets to grow tax-free inside that policy. And then also, take out the reinsurance on whatever debt you borrow against it so that when you pass away, your debt gets paid off by the reinsurance and the assets in the policy flow into your trust and your family has all of them again and they just do it over again. And that's how the Rockefellers have continued to grow their wealth exponentially over the last 100 years. One of our partners at Digital Ascension Group and Digital Wealth Partners is a previous employee of the Rockefeller family office, and he helps us structure all this stuff. So the last piece here, again, is kind of what you mentioned. And also, if you have a seasoned bank account for your LLC and it's a business, it's a lot easier to take large profits to that account at your bank without any questions. Whereas if you move a couple $1 million into your personal account from a crypto exchange, probably going to flag that. Just telling you from experience. So anyway, set things up beforehand, have, some seasoned accounts where you've moved stuff in and out. It does make a big difference when price appreciation happens. Same thing for the trust. It's going to take you about 2 years to season in a trust to make sure that you have the creditor protection that you want from an asset protection trust. So this piece in particular, let's say you want to move your assets into that trust on the other side of price appreciation. Between you and your spouse here in 2025, you get almost $28 million worth of gift tax exemption. This person says, can I do it with 25K XRP? No, we are not taking 25. We're already lowering it way down low to get to 50. 50 is the bottom of the barrel for what we're willing to take. And that's not because we don't want to take less or help other people. It's because it literally doesn't make sense for just the economics of our business model. Sorry, over here on TikTok, this person's hit me with like 15 requests for the same question. So I figured I would answer. You only get 28 million that you can gift over your lifetime out of your estate, taxable estate, into the trust. And so with that, you may not want that. I'm going to gift it all because I don't want a step up in basis for my son. I want him to get saddled with large tax implications and be incentivized not to sell the XRP. But some people may want to keep a portion of those assets in their estate so that they get the step up in basis. And so what that means is, God forbid something happens to you, we're all going to die at some point. Your beneficiaries are going to get those assets. If you get a step up in basis, when that happens, that $28 million gets gifted to them that's still in your estate. Now that $28 million is at whatever price they get it at. That's their basis. So if it's $10,000 per XRP when they get that money, their new basis is $10,000 per XRP instead of the 50 cents or the dollar or the $2 that you bought it at. So they won't have any tax implications. If they want to just liquidate it and move it into cash, they're good to go. If Trump gets his way, none of that's going to matter anyway, because there will be no capital gains on these digital assets. So, but it is still a benefit to be able to move stuff in and out of your estate, and you get that $28 million in gift tax. So the way that you can squeeze that value down is if it's in an LLC, you can gift small portions of equity, like this gentleman wants to his adult children, 1 to 5% each. And you would still have to fill out that form 709 showing that you gifted that amount to them. They wouldn't pay the taxes on it. Then you get a valuation done on the LLC. And even though, like as an example, let's say you had $50 million in the LLC and you gift, 7% between the children. And now you have minority owners on the cap table. When you got a valuation done, a 409 on that corporation, even though the assets of the corporation are worth $50 million, the valuation is going to come back somewhere around $30 million, because anybody that would want to purchase it isn't going to want to deal with those minority owners on the cap table. And so therefore, you'll be able to gift more of your assets out of your taxable estate into the trust, because again, you and your spouse get $28 million that you can do that over your lifetime. So I know I rambled on, and that was like drinking through a fire hose for most people. It's something that I deal with on a consistent basis. We've talked to all of our estate planners and tax attorneys about it. If you do want help with that stuff, I would consult them. I would have professionals in your corner. We're happy to make introductions to the people that we deal with. But to answer your question, I would likely do that post price appreciation, just to be able to get the full benefit when you do it. We got Jeremiah. He says, is there an opportunity to invest in real estate on blockchain that might not be available later on? Not that I'm aware of. Unless it's like Lands of the Meta or something that's gone way down in value, if you're talking about that type of real estate. We go into real estate on the video that I'm putting out in detail about tokenizing titles and deeds and which networks have that specific use case in mind. You got Proppy, which is, they got a $50 trillion market here in the U.S. for the U.S. real estate market. They specialize in 1031 exchange on chain. We've met their CEO, very sharp lady. There's I don't know. I think they got like $21 million, $22 million worth of real estate. Maybe it's more than that now on their platform there for Proppy that they've tokenized. Maybe it was like 4 million. Maybe it's 4 billion. I don't remember. It was a small amount in comparison to the total amount of real estate here in the US. Almost everything. Like there was very few applications that had tokenized more than 1% of the total asset class. I think carbon credits was actually like at 5%. 5% of all carbon credits have been tokenized, which is wild. This person says, I just signed up for Carbon One. Where do I go to get in the special group chats? We record weekly calls every single week on Monday and Saturday. If you want to go to the business resource, well, it's no longer business resources. It's just, recorded calls channel there in general chat. And you can listen back to all the calls. We've probably got, like over 1,000 hours worth of calls over the last 2 years that we've done, talking about different things at different points. We've had a lot of professionals in there that talked about how to improve your credit, business credit, invest in real estate deals, invest in tiny homes, invest in trailer parks, invest in storage units, multifamily property, how to set up trust, international trust, insurance policies, all kinds of stuff. So again, just try to provide as much value as we can there in that community and have on really good professionals. But yeah, on the real estate side, I don't know of any opportunities that exist now that won't later on. And And again, if people want to join the mastermind and check all of that out, you can do it for a whole month for free. It's literally right here at the website at the top of the screen here on YouTube and X. It's beyondbroke.com. And over here on TikTok, beyondbroke.com, you can use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO, like Mary Oscar, gets you a free month there in the group. This person's asked about XCN. So if that really is Onyx, if it really is JP Morgan's token, going to be fire. If it's a fraud, going to go to 0. I don't know which one it's going to be. I can't find definitive evidence either way. So that's one of those you can like roll the dice on. Similar to the thing that I put out in the mastermind earlier today that I invested in. So no longer I got 0.01% of my net worth in another token for the first time in 3 years. So pretty cool. You know, I like finding like gems, and I'm not ever anybody that's going to shill you anything or come on and like talk about this is the next greatest thing every other week. I've been in one asset for 3 years, and I finally found something else that I think might have similar returns if it gets the adoption that it could. It's nowhere near as definitive of it as XRP, in my opinion. We got DH. They say, I have an LLC in New Mexico with a bank account. Would it be possible to move it to Wyoming and the advantages of doing so? It's a good question. So New Mexico has some state tax. Wyoming has no state tax. You aren't going to get attorney-client privilege there in New Mexico. So when you set it up, your attorney's name isn't going to be on there. It's your name and your address. So anybody that finds it can look you up publicly. If they figure out how much money is being managed by that corporation, they can come find you, which they can't do in Wyoming. And when we file it, we make sure of that. And then separate of that, the legislation as far as digital assets goes there in New Mexico, probably not very progressive. I haven't heard of anything there in New Mexico that leads me to believe that would be very beneficial to set anything up there. And whatever you set your LLC up before, you filed an NAICS code with the IRS for what type of business it would be. So you would have to go back and change that. If it's a multi-member, you'd have to convert it to a single member. That's another piece of this. So if you go do this on your own, just know we charge $1,500 for the LLC, and that's going to go up on the 28th of this month to $2,000 because we're adding a virtual office for everybody to get their mail forwarded. And anybody that gets in, we're just going to go ahead and give that to you. So anyway, trying to take care of people, do the best that we can. But yeah, I would highly recommend doing it in Wyoming. Whatever you set the LLC up for there in New Mexico, if it was real estate or something else, probably not going to be conducive for what you want to do to manage your digital assets. I could be wrong. It could be a holding corporation used to manage different types of alternative investments, and you could have filed it under NAICS code 551112 or 551114. But again, very niche use case for what we're putting together to allow people to be able to manage their digital assets in an LLC. Probably not something that you set up. And I'm not trying to sell you on ours. You can absolutely go find another attorney that would do this for you. They're likely going to charge you somewhere between $3,000 and $3,500 for everything that we provide. EIN, articles of organization, registered agent, certificate of good standing, how to set up a bank account, the template for the operating agreement. And we're going to be adding some things to make it easier to set up a bank account, along with the virtual office to forward your mail in the very near future. So again, we want to provide as much value as we can. This is our niche. This is what we do. But if you want to work with somebody else, we definitely understand. We have J.K. Richardson says, join the mastermind, win-win. Yes, sir. Appreciate you being in there. Thank you for the support and the kind words. Let's see. Wow. Some more super chats. Hey, Crypto Clay. Thank you so much, brother. He says, from Mickle Mafia. What? Love you, brother. So grateful for everything you do. MAGA, US. That's awesome, man. Thank you for the super chat. Mickle Mafia is awesome. for those that don't know, Mikkel is our head advisor for Digital Wealth Partners. He got his 65 and we partnered up almost a year ago. I was on a podcast. It was actually live at about this time of night with Mikkel about a year ago today, where we had that conversation, and that all kind of came to fruition, and history's been made since then. We've been able to accomplish wild things together in the last year with the team that we've built, and yeah, just super proud to have him on. That young man hustles. I mean, I talked about, me waking up at 6:30 and still working until midnight. He does the same thing. Everybody on our team is wide open all the time because we're so excited about what we're building, and just trying to make sure we're first to market in every way we can be. We're in a blue ocean. Nobody else is doing what we're doing, and it's just opportunity of a lifetime. So this person has asked, are you having an in-person meeting next week? We will be here for Mastermind members in Dallas on the 23rd. We have an event here in Dallas. If you're in the Mastermind, would love to see you guys in person if you want to come down. We have a space that we rent that's pretty cool. There's a lot of exotic cars. It looks out over a big parking lot of cool cars. Everybody gets 2 free drinks when they show up. And, we do more in real life events for our masterminding group than any other group. I think even in crypto, to be honest with you, maybe Bored Ape Yacht Club does the same or maybe more events than we do, but we do one at least each quarter. We have another one in May in Vegas. So if you're in the group, again, you'll know about that and where that is. It's the same week as XRP Vegas a couple days before. So look forward to seeing everybody here in Dallas and there in Vegas here in a couple months. This person says, just want to say thank you, like, sub, and share, plus join the mastermind. Oh, hope you're doing well, by the way. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you for the super chat and the kind words and what he said. I always forget to say this. If you wouldn't mind, please like and subscribe if you are getting value from the channel. It does help the algorithm and get it to new people. If you think there's somebody else in your peer group that would benefit from watching stuff that I put out, please introduce them. It does help things, and it really is appreciated. We've got William. He says, hi, Jake. If I owned Bitcoin right now, would you convert to XRP? Thanks. Well, let's look at the chart, William. So if you want to pull up XRP /BTC, and you want to look at that on TradingView, you can look at the total chart here. So I'm not going to tell you one way or another, right? You make your own financial decisions. I'm just going to show you some data, okay? So we're going to move it to the weekly time frame. So let's see here. I don't know if I can share my screen. Maybe I can. Pull this up here. Let's see if I can do that. Share screen. Understand. XRP BTC. Can you guys see this? Am I sharing my screen for the first time ever? Not over here on TikTok. I'm sorry, but I think I am here on X and YouTube. So you can see the chart here of XRP versus BTC. And so it was a big, long wedge down here to this bottom area. And then we've come up a little bit and kind of we're hanging out right on top of this line of resistance, building support before it breaks out higher again. And I think you're going to go much higher than this. So in relation, it looks like things are poised to have a drawdown in Bitcoin while XRP is appreciating in value. Is that going to happen? I don't have a crystal ball. I'm just looking at a chart here based on previous price action and what's happened in the past and the supports and where they're being built. TA guy. So, oh, here it is. That's how you show it on screen. Now you guys can see it. Anyway, so here you go. Here's all-time high of XRP against Bitcoin for a couple times, and then we had a big long wedge all the way back down here to November last year, and then we've broken out since then. And you can see that it's sitting on top of support right above this previous level of resistance where it was denied 3 times, and now we turned that into support, and this should break out higher from here. So again, not a TA guy, but up to you. I think there could be a really good potential to generate some pretty significant returns on your investment if you were to convert. But again, you have to be all the other stuff that goes along with that. So can't give you financial advice. I've been in XRP siloed for a while, until yesterday when I bought just one other thing, and it's just a little bit. So we have Nef G. Hey Jake, my brother John and Billy appreciate your XRP and macro insights. Thank you. Thank you for the kind words. One question: upon the SEC approval of the XRP ETFs, will offering institutions typically acquire XRP via exchanges, OTC, or a mix? Thanks. God bless. So right now, you've seen volume on XRP pick up, and it's been consistent. And a lot of people are like, well, why hasn't it dropped back down to 50 cents or 75 cents or $1? Like a lot of the market's already seen, 60 or 70% pullback from the previous high that we had late last year. The reason for that, for XRP in particular, is because institutions are accumulating XRP and people are averaging into the market. And they use a technique called TWAP or VWAP, which is a time-weighted volume average or a volume-weighted average. And basically, if you had 20, 50, $100 million and you wanted to average into the market, you partner with a team that runs an algorithm and they buy the bottom of each dip over an extended period of time. Or if you were selling, they would sell the top of each crest so that you would get the best price for when you were selling things. And you don't have a huge amount of slippage and loss in the market one way or the other when you have huge volatility, like you would if you just dumped it through an exchange onto the market. So I think that you're seeing a mix of both. I think that they're buying through exchanges via TWAP and VWAP, and I think there are OTC transactions happening as well. But when the ETFs go live, I think you're going to see so much volume come in all at one time that they're not going to be able to hold price down. You won't be able to average into the market over a period. It's going to be FOMO, and you'll be seeing people pile in any way that they can get it, and there'll be a supply shock that drives the price significantly higher. We got Miles Wilder. He says, could you tell us about Constellation DAG? Yeah, so I think DAG's a good opportunity. Again, not financial advice. What's current price of DAG? We got, it was at like 5 cents not that long ago. It's back down below that. We're at 3 cents, 3.68 cents. Looking like a pretty good buy here. If you were gonna get one. Again, not financial advice, but they have a lot of government contracts. There's a lot of inroads there. Not as well known as some of the other larger, digital assets out there: Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, Solana, Matic, Chainlink. I think DAG's a sleeper, and I do think it will be used in real world applications by the U.S. government and many others. And I do think you're going to see adoption and some pretty good price appreciation on it. We'll see. Let's see here. Scrolling on down. We have Honest Aim. How are you, sir? Appreciate you on the super set. He said, great to visit with you yesterday. Yes, sir. It's good to see you too. If someone has enough crypto to be wealthy, 2 times expensive in passive income, that's my definition of financially free. What's 3 of the biggest mistakes you can see them making? Thanks for all that you do for the little guys. Absolutely. It's a good question. So I talked about this at XRP Vegas the first time I went. I think you're going to see a lot of people, and this is just normal. So like, this isn't like bad or, well, I mean, it kind of sucks because of the outcome, but most people, when they come into large amounts of money, have never dealt with money before. They don't know how to invest it. The analogy I give is like a dog chasing a car and then it catches it. And if you don't know how to drive it and you don't know what to do with it, it's probably going to run you over. Most people that come into that are lottery winners go bankrupt within 3 to 5 years. People don't know the difference between assets and liabilities. So assets are things that put money in your pocket. Liabilities are things that take money out of your pocket. It's literally that simple. So if you go buy a home and vehicles and a bunch of things that cost you money every single month and you finance them, and you don't have your money put to work in a way that it's generating enough money for you to pay for those things with passive income and have extra, you're going to burn through that money quickly. I wouldn't upgrade your lifestyle. I would wait 6 months. Most people immediately jump into things. If you can defer, like I know people have waited a long time for digital assets to appreciate. Okay, I'm in the same boat. If you can defer gratification, you're going to be better off. If you can go buy a piece of real estate, if you can put your assets into a fund, if you can get them into something that's safe and secure and generates returns for you and your family, and you know what you're going to get on a regular basis, and you can budget, even if it's a lot of money on a regular basis, as long as you're budgeting and you're allowing for your expenses to be half of your income every single month, even if you have the exotic car, even if you have the $3 million home, even if you have crazy vacations and you take the private jet and do all that stuff, if you're making twice the amount of money from passive income every single month beyond what you're spending, you are going to do very well. If you spend more than you are making every month, you are going to be poor eventually again. And I think that that's just like a hard concept for people to really understand, is it comes down to money management. Money is a cruel mistress. If you do not pay her attention, she will leave you. And so I look at my financial statements every single morning. I'm looking at the businesses. I'm looking at cash flows. I'm looking at balance sheets. I'm looking at my personal net worth, making sure that I know where everything is, right? You want to make sure that you're staying up on that. You don't want to bury your head in the sand or think I've got so much it doesn't matter. If you look at all of the wealthiest people that have ever lived, they were almost like obsessed with watching their money. They know where every nickel got spent, every penny got spent in their businesses. Super meticulous when it comes to that. So if you can, again, just think through that lens on the other side of price appreciation, and you think, okay, passive income, I'll be able to set myself up through some means that generates enough money for me every single month. And as long as I don't let my lifestyle creep move over half of that amount, I'm always going to have money and I'll always be wealthy. And there's some other pieces there in money management, diversification, and hedging against risk, and making sure that you're, not taking on too much risk. But aside from that, that's a really good principle, and hopefully people understand that and use it to make sure that they don't end up losing it all. That's really all I want. Like, I don't even care if people come work with us. I feel like we've got a really good product and team and all the stuff that you would need, and that's kind of how I've positioned it. But at the same time, I just want people to start thinking about this stuff, because you are going to become very wealthy if you're invested in this asset class and you're in the right tokens. Like this person says, is 20,000 XRP enough to sit on? Absolutely. Yeah. If you're going to hang out for another 5 years, you're going to be extremely, extremely wealthy with 20,000 XRP, in my personal opinion. So if it's $10,000 a piece, you got $200 million. If you're earning 5% on $200 million per year, that's $10 million per year that you're going to be earning in passive income. And if you're living on 5 of that, living it up, enjoying your life, you're going to be wealthy for a long, long time, right? This person says, where would we go to get info regarding the Mastermind group? It's beyondbroke.com. You just go check that out. And you can use the code, again, beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO, like Mary Oscar, gets you a free month there in the group. And yeah, here you go. Living Legacy is always right there in the super chat with everything for people. So here's again the code if you do want to join the group, Carbon One or Social. We got tinfoil hat time from Hunter. He says, reverse carry trade. They kick the can down the road until laws are passed. Thanks for your nonstop efforts. They absolutely could, right? Again, I talked about, the EVM side chain on the XRPL going live here at the end of April. It looks like some steam's blown off the markets. Where are we at on the 10-year yield for the JPY? It started to creep back up pretty quickly after it fell significantly last week. We're back at 1.34. Around 1.5, over 1.5 is the danger zone, is what I call it. And it looks like, it's continuing to be held here by the Bank of Japan. So not a whole lot of risk. Like I said, with everything that's kind of transpired here, I'm looking for a melt up in markets before we get the melt down. I didn't know which way it was going to go before, but I'm pretty confident now based on what I'm seeing that's how we're going to get stuck with it, which is I'm all good for. You know, it's hard to guess which direction things are going to be. We got Stephen Shumway, probably butchered it. Sorry, Stephen. Not good with names, but I'll remember your face for the rest of my life. Stephen says, what will a bear market for XRP look like once adoption is here? No such thing. And how should that affect long-term holders on taking profits without risking getting priced out? If you have utility of this digital asset, it is up and to the right. Period. It will either be stable because it'll have enough volume moving across the network to hold price stability, and the escrow will be released and they'll continue to do what they've been doing, which is holding price stability. People get mad about that, but it'll move up and then it'll be flat for a long time before they move it up again, to be able to, use whatever liquidity is there to be able to settle other markets. So that's going to be the bear market. It'll be flat for a while. If you can consider that a bear market, I don't really. It's going to be a completely different financial instrument than it is today when you see utility, and that's not only for XRP. That's for other digital assets too. Once you have volumes moving over these networks, it's going to hold price stability, and then as more value moves onto the network and supply and demand dynamics shift, you'll continue to see them move up and to the right. I think you're going to get like a 10-year bull market for this whole asset class once you start to see utility kind of break in. And there'll be things that come about. Again, the token that I mentioned in the Mastermind this morning, pretty bullish on that. We've got Green 19. They say, hey, Jake, watching your stream back has become my Tuesday and Thursday drive into the office. Awesome, brother. Thank you so much. That's super cool. He says, got my onboarding fees paid. Awesome. Starting my LLC tomorrow. Just wanted to say thank you for what you do. Absolutely, man. Thank you for the kind words. That's super cool. It's weird to be on the other side of this. Like when I started investing in digital assets, I watched all these YouTube channels. I watched DAI. I watched Brad Kimes. I watched Digital Dave. I watched Digital Outlook. I watched BitBoy, Crypto Lark. Like there's tons of people that I watched on a pretty regular basis when I first got into crypto, and it's weird to be the other side of that now. People come up and they feel like, I don't know, I felt like I knew those guys when I met them, even though they'd never seen me before ever. And people get on calls with me and they're the same way. But again, I'm just a guy, I'm not, I don't know. I don't view myself in any special way. So appreciate you for the kind words, and that's super cool to hear, and excited to be working with you and your family. We got Tom41. He says, I filled out the form for my LLC with you. Will I have to transfer my assets to different wallets? No. So I make this as simple as possible because there's so many other people that want to complicate this whole transaction. Okay. The best way to do this is just to list your wallet itself as the capital contribution to start the business. And so that's what we do. We provide, and this is something I didn't mention earlier about the LLC, but we provide a step-by-step process on how to move your assets into the LLC and make it super simple for you. So there's the last page of your operating agreement that we provide you as the template. You'll list the wallet address, the asset, so XRP, XLM, HBAR, whatever it is, the amount of the asset, and then the dollar amount on the day that you transferred it. And you'll go get that notarized. And that'll serve as a timestamp of when that transaction took place, when you started the business and gave that capital to the business. There's no tax consequences for doing that as long as it's a single member LLC, which is how we set all of them up. If you do want your spouse on the LLC, you can absolutely do that. You can make them a manager in the LLC, and they would have signing rights and visibility of all the assets, and obviously would take over. Most states have strong spousal rights, so irrespective of if it's a single member or multi-member, like your spouse is pretty much entitled to everything there. There's a few states that don't, but if she's a manager or your husband's a manager, like they're the ones that are going to get everything, be able to work with it. God forbid something happened to you. So anyway, yeah, that's the process. It's literally that simple. You just write it on a piece of paper and go get it notarized, and voila, your assets are then in the LLC from that day forth. We've got I'm XRP'd. Interesting. I like your name. Hi, Jake. I am Canadian resident. I'm requesting my Wyoming LLC in Canada. I'm registering my Wyoming LLC in Canada. The form requires in several places the Canadian contact name, the LLC name, and the street address. Does that defeat the purpose of a Wyoming LLC regarding anonymity? Depends on where that's visible to the public. And if it is, I don't think so. And I'll state this about Canadians. One, we're looking at a custodian there in Canada. So report back on that if that ends up working out, which would be cool. And separately of that, Canada doesn't recognize LLCs. They're going to tax you. They're going to tax you twice. So they're going to tax you once on the assets or whatever income you made here in the US. They look at it as like a C corp. So they tax you at the level of the corporation, and then again when you pass that money to yourself. So I'd recommend talking to Aaron Grenhaus before setting up an LLC here in the US. If you plan to move to the US post price appreciation, all day long, because Canada, their tax system is residency based, whereas the US tax is citizenship based. So if you move out of Canada and you reside here in the US, you're only going to be taxed once here in the US, and we would be able to utilize the pass-through taxation of the LLC. You just want to get a visa, or maybe we pass this law where you can pay $5 million and get your golden visa here to the US. I think we should do it personally. I think that's a great way. White Rock, is it legit? People joke and say that we'll end up being White Rock. We currently have close to $300 million worth of XRP under management, about 150 million XRP in the pipeline and being onboarded. And if the assets appreciate to how I think they're going to, we will definitely have a lot of capital. But not BlackRock and all these other institutions have large amounts of XRP too. So, but I do think we will be a force to be reckoned with for the retail investor, and we will be able to provide a lot of value to our clients as we do now. We negotiate deals that you can't get. The two funds that we participate in that allow you to generate returns on your XRP, you normally have to have at least $20 million just to approach them. We get people in for $50,000 worth of XRP, as long as they're accredited. So you're able to get access to stuff that doesn't exist for the average retail person if you are partnered with Digital Wealth Partners and are a client of the firm. Back to this gentleman here, though. It could be a good idea to set up an LLC in the US. It all just depends. And again, I would reach out to Aaron Grenhaus. I've done multiple podcasts with him here on the channel if you want to go check him out, where he explains a lot of that. And he is the best professional there in Canada when it comes to tax law, setting up estates, and doing taxes for your digital assets. He's a tax attorney there in Canada and understands US tax law also. Why is an LLC better than trust? It's not. It's not better than trust. But there's lots of different types of trusts. And depending on what you're trying to do with the assets, it might be. So an LLC provides you the ability to write off taxes inside of a trust. Anything north of any income north of $15,000 here in the US is going to be taxed at 37.5%. So it's always good. We like to have both. We like to have a trust and an LLC, and keep a portion of your assets in both. And then that way the LLC can pay the taxes on behalf of the trust, where the assets continue to compound in the trust, and you don't have to sell them off to be able to cover the taxes from the income that you're receiving, because it's always taxed at a higher rate. Anybody that tells you that they can defer your taxes in a trust or do some crazy stuff and like mitigate your taxes with a trust, run the other way. Even if they tell you that we beat the IRS and this, that, and the other, the IRS doesn't lose. The IRS is going to come get your money. You might as well just use the tax law the way that it's written to be able to mitigate taxes. I don't understand why people want to come up with ecclesiastic trusts or wild, crazy stuff to try to circumvent the tax code. Like, just use what they gave you. Like, there's lots of people like Donald Trump that use exactly what they gave him, and he pays $500 a year in taxes. We do the same thing. We leverage the tax code. So LLC can be beneficial. And the reason is it might be better is it's much more affordable for most people versus a trust. If you set up an asset protection trust in Wyoming, it's going to cost you somewhere between, on the very low end, $10,000, on the high end, $30,000, depending on who you work with and how long it takes and what all bells and whistles you have in it. Okay, so unless you got that kind of bread or that cheddar to pay out today, and you have, $500,000, $1 million, $2 million in digital assets, where it makes sense to set up a trust, an LLC is a great bridge, a very cost-effective way to make sure that you are in a good position to be able to mitigate taxes on the other side of price appreciation and have all the flexibility and benefit to move your assets into a trust in an effective way when that happens. So, very good question. Glitch in the matrix again. I'm not going to miss this super chat, brother. You called me out last time. I'm sorry. He says, clarification. When utilizing the EVM sidechain from the XRPL, do you automatically enter into Axelar's hub and spoke model? No. Or must it be selected and utilized, thinking about Hidden Road? So we've talked to Axelar. I've talked to all these people. And so that's the other reason, like, I can kind of speak to this with some actual credit. We talk to all these people because we're building real applications where this stuff matters. And we want to be able to partner with the right people to actually execute on the vision for what we're doing. So when it comes to Axelar, it allows for interoperability between EVM networks and Solana and other chains, right? So like you mentioned, kind of a hub and spoke. As long as the stable coins are issued on the EVM sidechain, there's no reason to even interact with Axelar to swap over to another network. The only reason you need to do that is if the other asset that you were purchasing or transacting with was issued on Solana or something separate than the XRP EVM sidechain. I think that the majority of stable coins that are going to be from Google and Apple and Amazon and Ripple and all of the other large enterprises are going to be issued on the EVM sidechain for ease of interoperability and settlement through XRP. So I think you're overthinking it, I guess is what I would say. It was a good question, though. We've got Tom41. He says, your special for the 50,000 XRP changes my question. Okay. Yeah, so again, just in case people are logging in now or watching now, if you want to get into Digital Wealth Partners and you have at least 50,000 XRP and your assets are in an LLC, or you're setting up an LLC, we'll even accommodate that. As long as you fill out the contact us form this week, we can work with you if you have 50,000 XRP, and we'll get you into custody. And if you're accredited, we can generate returns on it. If you're not accredited, it's going to be 60 days or so. Terrence says, what do you think XRP will go to this year? Depends on the catalysts that happen and the events that transpire and the reverse carry trade and Tether and ETFs and all the other stuff that I talk about. But if all that unfolds in the right order and we get the perfect storm, you could see a $2,000 XRP here in 2025. But he says, I'll get back to this question. Sorry, Tom. He says, your special changes my question. What are the main perks for doing that? And is there just an extra charge for being a custodian? So we have costs, right? Just so you're aware, like, we really don't make money operating today. I'm building this because I have a lot of faith that XRP is going to appreciate, and I want to make sure that people have a place to hold their assets and be safe and have peace of mind. Because that's important for me. My wife has no clue on this stuff. If I didn't have an institutional account and I just had it on a ledger, if something happens to me, her and my kiddo are done because she has no clue. So we've got her on the account. Kids are beneficiaries. Everything's set up good to go. But there are costs associated with that. The security at Anchorage is more secure than any other custodian. They shard the keys after they're encrypted, and then they hold those across HSMs or hardware security modules all over the world. And those are only come back together and execute a transaction on chain when that quorum is met. You sign, we sign, and they approve. That's the only way that your assets can move out of their vault that they have there for you. And they're insured up to $100 million. They're segregated. They're bankruptcy remote. You get all of the benefits that everybody dreams of about their digital assets. And we provide ways to be able to generate returns on your digital assets and borrow against them. And I'll talk about this too. So we've had a few people almost get liquidated that borrowed money against their XRP. But because our team is involved with the counterparty, we kept those liquidations from happening because we're on top of it. And you're never going to get that with the DeFi protocol. They're just going to sell your stuff and say bye-bye. Okay. We do the absolute best that we can to make sure that those things do not happen for our clients. And if they do get to the point where they are going to get liquidated, they get first right of refusal. You can buy your assets back before they're going to get sold to somebody else. So we've done everything that we can to mitigate any risk of loss. Our number one rule at Digital Wealth Partners is don't lose crypto. Number two rule is refer to rule number one. So we do everything that we can to mitigate loss. You'll have a financial advisor that will advise you on your crypto. Nobody else provides that. Like, you are never going to find, I can guarantee it, you're not going to find another wealth manager that's going to advise you on your crypto. We are literally writing the rules. We are on the committee, sitting with the working group, talking to the SEC about how RIAs are going to work in this space, because we're the only one. We've got almost 600 clients, and the next closest RIA has 15. Just wild that we're in this position. So anyway, if you want to be on the bleeding edge, if you want to be as part of something that's historic, we would love to work with you in that capacity. And again, it's only 50,000 XRP that it takes to become a client. And you can do cash too. I just want to mention this because my team's on my ass about it. So if you got like $200,000 in cash and you want access to crypto and you want to work with us, we can do that also. Almost at the hour and a half mark. We'll hang it up at about 10:30 today. Here's that code for you guys. If you do want the LLC formation, it is 50 off 50 OFF DAG LLC, and it's there at this website, digitalfamilyoffice.io/services/ LLC entity formation / it's a long mouthful, but yeah, if you want to make sure that you're in position to take full advantage of everything when your price appreciation happens for your XRP or any other digital asset, you want to make sure that you're protected and you have all the benefits that an LLC provides that we've been talking about. It's only $1,500 to get everything all in. Yeah, and then we're going to move that again to $2,000 here at the end of the month. Because again, we're going to provide, a virtual office for everybody to forward your mail, and anybody else is going to be at 2,000 at that point. So look forward to working with you guys if that's something that you're interested in. We got Group 1 Gavin. What's going on, man? He always has the good super chats. He says, hello from sunny Perth. Yeah, there we go. Nice and warm there in Australia. Hope you enjoyed the Masters. I did. I got to see Rory win. Some of the shots were wild, man. So for those that don't know, I played golf a lot in high school. My claim to fame is I played with Jordan Spieth my senior year. I watched him shoot the course record here in Texas at Lakewood, which was his home course. He was a sophomore. I was a senior. He beat me by 27 shots over 2 rounds. He shot 62, 64. And that's when I knew I wasn't that good, because I got to watch some of the best golf I've ever seen in my life, played by a kid that was like 40 pounds less than me at the time. And that's why I didn't go to the Air Force Academy and play golf and took a different path. So anyway, I do enjoy golf. I still watch, the U.S. Open and the Masters and the PGA Championship and what's the Cup, the FedEx Cup. There's a lot of tournaments that I'll turn on Sunday and just see what's going on. He says, do you think these prices are limited due to imminent increase of M2 money supply? With expected adoption, we will see current prices again. Yeah, I don't know that we're going to get back here again, man. I feel like we're in a holding pattern before this thing takes off like a rocket for a lot of these assets. Yeah, I think there's going to be something that allows for risk on to really like melt up here. And I don't know if it's the money printer go burr, like you're talking about, an M2 money supply increasing, or if they pivot and lower interest rates, or if they start using this technology to increase the velocity of money. It's going to be one of those three. I feel like a melt up's coming in the market. So yeah, I would agree with you. I think these prices aren't going to last that much longer. And very cool. Thank you for the super chat and the cool golf segue there. I got Connor. He says, do you see XRP jumping from 50 to 20, then to 100, etc.? $50 to $20, like going up and down and then up. It's possible. I think that you're going to see some type of melt up and then some type of meltdown. And that's when you're going to see the crazy numbers for XRP, because that's what they're going to need to be able to settle back in and de-risk on the stock market when that all unfolds. So possibly, and I don't know. Again, I don't have a crystal ball, Connor. I wish I did. I'd be a really wealthy guy, more than I am. If I had a crystal ball and knew what the future held, I'm just going to keep holding XRP and keep buying XRP. That's all I know, because I know where it's headed over the long term. This is a long-term investment for me. And again, I'm building all the products to be able to generate returns on it, borrow against it, and never have to sell it, so that I can keep on holding it as it appreciates over time. And Digital Wealth Partners has all of those things in place today, which is super cool to say after 2.5 years of trying to get all that put together before price went, and we got it done. Let's see here. We got Dr. Denise with the 888. Thank you, ma'am. Hope you're doing well. She says, well, it might be a gentleman. I didn't even think about that, but I think it's a female. If we have an LLC in California and want to, as soon as possible, open an IRA with DWP, can we do that in the first step? Is it true that IRAs are not anonymous? Then open Wyoming LLC and transfer. So an IRA is an individual retirement account. It is in your name. You can have the beneficiary as the LLC, but any IRA that's opened is in your personal name, because it is, in fact, an individual retirement account. Now, you get some benefits as a business owner if you make contributions to a qualified retirement fund or investment like an IRA or a 401k, and those can be self-directed. You can do a Roth. You can do a backdoor Roth if you have an IRA and you want to fund it that way. You pay the taxes up front and then move the asset in there. I don't particularly like IRAs unless you're closer to 50 or maybe past 50, because there's a really long time horizon where you're not going to be able to use those assets in any meaningful way. We're working on ways where you can earn returns inside of an IRA, and those could go into a side pot that you could borrow against, but you can't ever borrow against the initial principal in an IRA. And so that makes it pretty hard to do much with them that's meaningful to be able to generate returns for people. I'll touch on this real quick. Sorry. Hopefully that answers your question on the IRAs, but you wouldn't be able to move it to a Wyoming LLC. It's not going to be, it's synonymous. Like, people can't figure out, publicly look up who's associated with an IRA. This wonderful lady over here has asked an update on Anchorage investigation by U.S. Homeland Security. So that was an announcement and was like a wild morning for me. Like I said, long day. I'll read y'all what they told us, because that's legally what I'm supposed to say here. Hold on. We have, is it in this chat? No. Hold on. All right, here it is. And this is from their legal team. This is what we sent to all of our clients. I'm just going to read you what it says. The article references an unspecified government inquiry and relies on anonymous sources. Speculating to the media about the nature of an unspecified inquiry is irresponsible. As such, we chose not to participate in the story. Inquiries are business as usual, and as a regulated entity, we will, of course, fully cooperate with any legitimate investigations that actually materialize. So, based on everything I read, and again, I'm just reading you what they actually gave us to say. I'm not going to ever shy away from something. All of our stuff is operating as normal. No accounts are frozen. There's no issues. We have our own KYC AML policy, completely separate of anything to do with Anchorage. So, all of our accounts are good. All of our people are good. We never commingle funds in a way that would expose our clients to risk. And not overly concerned about it. I think this is kind of like the last shot across the bow for crypto. You've seen the SEC attack Coinbase and Kraken and Ripple. I think this is kind of just like the last administration trying to rear its head with its media profile. Cointelegraph is who originally put this out. Look, trying to get views, trying to get, you want eyeballs on stuff, and you put some things out that I think, look, what they said was there's a probe between these two, and there really wasn't any accusations or anything, and they said, and I don't think there actually is anything. I think there may have been some previous employees that they asked some questions to. And I think that's really just kind of the end of it. So we'll see if anything else transpires. I'll definitely keep you guys up to date. Same thing with our clients, but at this time, not really concerned about it, and it's business as usual for us. Let's see here. We got Jeff Collins. How are you, sir? He says ETFs, stable coins, regulation, and no capital gains will melt faces. I love it. All of which could happen this year. Would we get a massive influx of baby boomers' wealth and pension funds moving into crypto? Yeah, you would. And you interesting you say that. Our average client, Jeff, is somewhere between the age of 45 and 80. So a lot of baby boomers that have wealth and are already in crypto. You just don't really realize it. Which is, you wouldn't think, you think it'd be Gen Z and millennials and maybe some Gen X, and the boomers would probably be like, yeah, that's some sketchy stuff. I'm not dealing with it. It's actually not true. There's a lot of pretty educated, tech savvy boomers that have made a pretty significant allocations to this asset class. And we work with a lot of them, pretty sharp people. Pension funds are going to be a tough cookie to crack. They are very regulated in the way what assets they can actually invest in. Mutual funds and bonds has to be very low risk for pension funds. I think the way that pension funds will be able to take an allocation in crypto and annuities and other stuff, there may be some pension funds now that have an allocation to the ETFs, right? That may be their current, portfolio allocation, but it's not direct crypto. I think the way that you might see this transpire in the future is through staking pools that are owned, and you could purchase a piece of them to be able to generate yield off of that and have a residual income. Both annuities and pensions would find that pretty meaningful. Structured income is really good for them in the way that they have to pay people out. So I think so whoever figures out how to orchestrate that, I think will do pretty well. And that's how I see them participating. But baby boomers are already here. It's just not quite as prevalent as people think, or less prevalent than what people think. We've got Todd 805. How are you, sir? Thanks, Jake, for all that you do. Absolutely. California, more Republicans in California than every other state in the U.S. Confused by that statement. I know that the majority of the state is actually red. It's just there's certain centers of the state that are very blue. Same thing here in Texas, like downtown Dallas and downtown Austin and large cities in San Antonio, like very blue concentrated there. I think that the majority of the U.S. is pretty red. Most counties, like if you actually looked at it. So I don't know. I have my own opinions about politics, but I won't get into them here. We've got Group 1 Gavin. He said, should these technologies be taught in school? Well, my answer to that, Gavin, would be, do you think that the internet protocol should be taught in school? Like, do you think that the email protocol should be taught in school? I don't. I don't think it really matter. I don't think that even being able to code will matter in another 2 years. I think that you'll just be able to tell an AI what you want to build, and it will build you an app like that. You're already starting to see it with some of these. So people that are going to school to be a developer or to write code might start leveraging ChatGPT and AI right now to be doing that, because if you're not on the forefront of that, you're going to get replaced. But as far as these networks and how they work, and most people are just going to use them. They're not even going to, they don't need to understand how they work. There's an opportunity right now for people to be able to participate in the internet of value and generate a return and do really well and gain some wealth. But over the long term, I don't think people are going to have any idea. They're just going to know that their money settles real time, or that they have access to their medical records when they need them, or like stuff just works fast and efficiently. They're not going to really care what the technology behind it is. I think it's interesting, but other people also think I'm crazy, like my wife. So we got Armani. He says, hey, Jake, the brain Claver. Biceps are more important to Armani. Once regulation hits, and let's say XRP hits $1,000, does a market crash bring in significantly lower, or it stabilizes? And thoughts on Flare Oracle being adopted by Aladdin AI? Ooh, that's an interesting question at the end. Again, I think for XRP to get to those types of levels, you're going to have the crash. It was built to save the day in that situation. And I think that's the only way it's actually going to get to those type of values. So I don't think you're going to see the crash post price appreciation to those levels for XRP. And then the Flare time series Oracle. So I know that Ripple's investment in Flare was primarily for that purpose, was the time series Oracle, to incentivize people to provide good pricing data. I don't know that Aladdin AI would use it, but any type of decentralized Oracle that aggregates data could be used by an AI for a multitude of reasons. So it's quite possible. And if you have a certain application where you think that'd be good, I'd love to hear it. We got Donald. What's up, man? He says, hello, Jake. I appreciate all that you share. I learn a lot watching your Q&A. Can you speak on Tangent Wallet? Absolutely, sir. I like Tangent Wallet. I think that it's a good product. I like the Tangent card. Anything where you actually don't see the keys, I think is a good deal. Now, there are risks associated with that, obviously. And so you always want to have a backup Tangent card to your wallet. Make sure that that's somewhere else separate of where you keep your other card, and it's in a safe place, just in case you lose that one or your house burns down or something bad happens. But yeah, I think that they have a great product. I like it with Zaman Wallet. Trying to make sure I get to all the super chats here before we wrap it up tonight. Here we go. Nope. Been through those. Let's see here. Nope. We got a couple more here right off the bottom. Shade Spot, what's up? They say, hey, Jake, hope you are well. I am. Thank you, sir. Question. Ripple is a U.S. company, and if the Fed gobbles up the escrow, why would China agree to use XRP, XRPL? Don't their use benefit America too? It's a good question. So the U.S. has been in opposition to Ripple for a long time. And so they've already made a bunch of deals with international governments and entities, SBI, Bank of Japan, Bank of India, Bank of India, the Central Bank of India, the Central Bank of China, the Central Bank of Russia, like all of the BRICS nations and BRICS Plus and CHIPS. I'm pretty confident it's going to utilize XRP. And the reason for that is it's a decentralized trusted network that they can validate the transactions on, and they don't have to trust the counterparty. And it's not going to benefit America. It would benefit themselves to use it, especially if they've got it on their balance sheet. Now, for the U.S. to adopt it and allow for things to progress from where it is and displace the U.S. dollar, the U.S. is probably going to have a pretty big say-so in the next system. But they can't freeze XRP like they can the dollar. They can't sanction other countries. If they do, they just blacklist their wallets and don't have to transact with them. But they can't stop them from transacting with other counterparties. And that's the biggest piece of SWIFT that people don't want to participate with, and why they don't want a U.S. controlled system. And in this situation, the U.S. wouldn't be able to control it anyway. Obviously, it would benefit the U.S. if everybody adopted it, if they do gobble up the escrow. But I think it may end up being the IMF or another neutral body, or maybe even BlackRock that acquires Ripple and the escrow. We'll have to see how that shakes out. But the U.S. is going to need a pretty big chunk of XRP to offset the $36 or $37 trillion worth of debt that we have. So, you would need, what would that be, like 36 billion XRP at $1,000 a piece would cover that debt. Just saying. So we'll see. But yeah, I think that Ripple's done a really good job over the last decade integrating itself with all of those counterparties, and R3 also. Most people don't even discuss R3 and Corda. I do, though. I don't have my mug with me, but we know about them. So yeah, I don't have any hesitation in believing that China and all of the other BRICS nations will utilize XRP, because it allows them to compete evenly globally in monetary transactions, and there's no recourse for the U.S. to sanction them or freeze their assets, which is their biggest concern after Russia and what happened there. So with that, I think that's going to be it for tonight. We'll take maybe one more over here on TikTok before we wrap it up. It's 2028. You have 2,000 XRP. Is XRP now a 4-digit coin? You selling, or you earning interest on it? I'm earning interest on it today, brother. We've got our funds live. And yeah, I'm pretty confident that it'll be 5 or 6 digits by 2028. So definitely holding, hodling, whatever you want to call it, putting it to work to be able to generate returns, and borrowing against it to be able to fund my lifestyle and purchase other things and businesses. So that is the plan, Stan, and we've already built it at Digital Wealth Partners. So with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Again, if you guys do want to check out the Mastermind, it is at beyondbroke.com. You can use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO gets you a free month there in the group at Carbon One or the social membership. We do have an event here on the 23rd in April here in Dallas. If you guys want to come check it out, I will be there, and almost all of our team will be there also, which is going to be awesome because we have another event the next day. If you do need an LLC, please go to digitalfamilyoffice.io. The code is 50OFF, 50OFF, DAG Get you 50% off. We're going to move that to $4,000 here on the 28th, but it's still $1,500 with that code here until the 28th of this month. If you want to go check that out. Again, position yourself for price appreciation. Make sure you're able to take the most advantage when the time comes. And then last but not least, if you do want to be able to generate returns on your digital assets, borrow against them, and hold them in qualified custody with an advisor, you can go check out digitalwealthpartners.net. This person over here, before we wrap it up, has asked if Decent's a good wallet. It's the only wallet that I actually recommend if you want to go check out our links in the bio. We are an affiliate, but that's because I actually do use the product and I like it. So how do you stake XRP? We do not stake XRP. There is no staking for XRP. There will never be any staking for XRP. Anybody that does that or says that is a liar. We use it, and we basically have done what liquidity pools are going to be in the future. We've been able to contribute that in kind into a fund, and we're partnering with other people to, issue a line of credit against it and then generate returns on it. We can do that with XLM too now there at Anchorage as well. So with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Hope you guys have a wonderful night, a wonderful week, and we'll see you guys on the next one.